Okay, so have you all got Photo P open? We left off with selections last week. I think, yeah, we'll find pictures of a guy leaning against a wall or something like that. And we were using our selection tools to try and remove his head or something. I think I was working on a guy, he was like lying down on the ground like he was doing yoga or stretching or something. Yeah. Okay, so you didn't have to save that image, so it's fine. We'll find another one to practice selections with today. I just want to finish the chapter on selections, chapter 5. And then chapter 6 is brush tools, which is really kind of what makes these kind of programs so special, is that they have a lot of these crazy brush tools that you can use. Okay, and there's many, but we'll just go into the basic ones. And then maybe we'll do text. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, we'll do another tutorial, but it's super easy. It's basically the stuff you learned last week. So, yeah, anyway, I'm going to try and get you guys to be more autonomous. So, I'm not going to do everything on the screen. I'm just going to ask you to do something, and then you're not going to copy me every step. So, create a new document in Photo P. And you can make it a landscape size. I don't know. Let's do an A5 print document. Okay, A5 print document. So if there isn't an A5 in the list, then you will have to work out what an A5 is. You have to type in the millimeters. Okay. I don't actually know what it is. It's half A4.
148 by 210.
Okay, we'll do portrait for it as well. So 210
by 148.
148. Okay. All right. And it's going to be a 300 DPI. Okay. Because we're going to do a print resolution file here. So it's going to look good if we make it ink on paper. Okay, so and then go ahead and open some image search, whatever your favorite one is, and then find an example of of an object against a background that we're going to separate the two. Okay, and don't choose a fluffy animal. Try and choose something with like a sharp edge. Okay. Fluffy animals are really hard because of the fur, and they have a fuzzy edge, so you can never get a clean separation between them and their background. Okay, I was going to get some background left in there. So I will leave it up to you to choose the image, but don't spend too long doing it. Okay. Oh, there is an A5 in there. Oh. Okay, I'm going to call this A5 projects. Oh, thank you. Okay, and then I don't think I went over with about smart objects with you guys. Okay, so there were a couple, I remember mentioning it in the Thursday session, and I think I skipped over that part with you guys. So we're going to do a little bit of a rewind here. When you found your image, okay, we're not going to copy and paste it into Photo P. I want you to save the image somewhere onto your computer. I'm going to save it on my desktop here. Unnamed. Okay. that right? I'm just looking at the file size there. It seems really small. I'm surprised. I want to just double check that came out right. Yep, looks like it. Okay. So when you saved your image, go back to Photopea, and then go File, Open and Place. Okay, not Open, because if we do that, it's going to open it in a new tab, and we want to actually place that file inside here. So just go Open and Place. And I'm just going to find it over there, unnamed, open. Oh, okay, there it is. Okay, this wasn't a particularly high resolution file, but that's okay because we're just practicing selecting right now. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to do that by dragging this out, and I'm going to hold in the Shift key so that it doesn't accidentally squash. Remember that. Okay. I'm just going to get it to be about that big. And you'll see that while I'm clicking and dragging this thing around, it snaps onto that center line. Okay, and if I move it down here, I can probably get it there. There you go. So these are smart guides, and they're on by default, and so they help you line up things in the center of your document here, if you want. And you'll see that the image is actually getting cropped on each side. Okay, never mind. I just can see the line. Okay, so I'm going to click the tick up here, or you could just click Enter, or you could just choose any other tool, really. Remember, there we go. And it's going to stay like that. Although I don't want to see these controls, so I'm going to turn them off. Okay, there we go. So I want you to look at your layers over here on the right-hand side. It's difficult to see, but in that little thumbnail on that unnamed layer, you'll see in the little bottom right corner is a little square. It's barely visible in the projector. I'm going to close this window a bit. There we go. Okay. There's a tiny little square in the corner. That means that this layer is a smart object. Okay? And there's a difference between when you the way that, well, that little shortcut that I taught you to just go and right-click and copy an image. Okay, and I'm going to make a comparison here. I'm going to just copy this image, the same one. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to go Control V for paste. There it is, okay. And you'll see that it's obviously much smaller. Let me change that quickly. Okay, so I'll make it roughly the same size. Okay. So if you compare layer 1 to unnamed under here, there is no little block in the bottom of layer 1. That's because it's not a smart object, okay? And what that means is that as long as that file lives on your hard drive, okay, it's kind of linking it into this layer. This layer is seeing the file that's sitting on your hard drive there. And the nice thing about smart objects is you can make size adjustments and rotation adjustments to them and some other basic positioning without actually losing pixels every time you resize it. Okay, so I'll give you an example of what I mean, because it's a weird concept. But here on layer 1, I just copied and pasted it in there. It's not a smart object. So I'm going to turn off the smart object layer at the moment. Okay, and I'm going to select layer 1. So it looks okay now. So I'm going to just transform this thing. I'm going to scale it down and make it really small, because maybe at some point I think, okay, I want it to be that small, and I'll put some text around it, whatever I'm doing. Okay, I accept that change. And then I decide later on I actually want it to be larger. Okay, I'm like, no, wait, I want it to be big again. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's a little bit fuzzier. And if I squash it down again, and I keep doing transforms to it, and maybe I rotate it a little bit like this, and then I make it very small. Okay, and then I decide I want to do another one, make it big again. Can you see how that image is becoming pixelated? Okay. Versus the smart object. If I turn this layer off and just turn the smart one on, you'll see that the smart object, if I zoom in, is really nice and crisp still. Crisp. Okay, but this one is really crap. That's the difference between smart objects, is that I've basically taken all that pixel information over here and I've pasted it into here. And so when I'm scaling it like that and making it smaller, it is losing all of those pixels, all the ones that I'm basically like leaving out of the image by reducing it in size. And then when I want to, so I've basically taken something that was maybe 1,000 pixels high and 1,000 pixels wide, and I made it 20 pixels high and 20 pixels wide. So it's lost 980 pixels, okay? And now I'm taking that same 20 pixel wide image and I'm changing my mind and I'm deciding I want to make it 4 full size again, it's now only got 20 pixels of information to work with. Okay, so you're going to end up with a very blurry image. And the more you rotate and transform it, you might not notice at first, but if you keep scaling it or making small adjustment to it, it's going to lose a small amount of detail every time. And you might end up with a very horrible looking file like this. And so the advantage of using a smart object, which is to insert one, it's as simple as going to File, Open and Place. Okay, then you can make those size adjustments and rotation and position as much as you want to this smart object file, this one that's called unnamed. And I'll do it now. Like I'll squash it like this. Okay, and then I'll go, I'll accept that change, and then I'm going to just make it wider, like, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to accept that. And then I'll make it tiny again. Okay. And then I'll make it full size where it was. And I can also type in the percentage or the measurement up here that I want, okay, if I want to position it exactly on the canvas. But you can just do it by eye, that's usually good enough. Okay, anyway, I'm just trying to show you that I can zoom in here. Okay, so it's squashed now. If I do that. Well, that quality's still there. Okay, I haven't lost it because it's a smart object. But as soon as I want to do something like use a brush tool on it, or start to select parts of the image and then and then cut them away, like we were doing last week, like let's say I'm going to take that piece there and cut it out. Okay, as soon as I go Control X, or if I go to Edit, Cut, after making that selection, it says Smart Object must be rasterized first, so it doesn't show for very long. Let me try that again. Delete. Yeah, Smart Object must be rasterized first. Okay, so as soon as you want to start editing the pixel information here, in other words, any kind of effect, if you're going to start changing the color or the brightness or the contrast, or you're going to start like painting over it or erasing parts of the image, okay, then you have to rasterize it. Okay, now we are dealing with raster images all the time, so it's a confusing term, but what they mean is you just need to right click on the layer and go to rasterize. And that basically makes it not a smart object anymore. So it's no longer linked to that file on your hard drive. Okay, which is basically preserving the quality of the image when you work with it, when you're scaling it and stuff like that. So I'll have to go rasterize over there, and then it will let me, cut these parts of the image out. Okay, but it'll give you a warning before you do that. So if you have a smart object and you maybe didn't notice, and you try and make some kind of adjustment like that, it'll say you need to rasterize the layer first. Okay, so you will get a little bit of a hint in case you run into that problem. And then you just right click on that layer and you go rasterize. Okay, and you can do the same thing with text. What it's basically doing is taking smart objects that Photopea understands, like text and like other files that you save in your computer, and it's just kind of like flattening them to their like raw pixel format so that you can start editing them. Okay, it's not a it's not a super important concept to remember, but I want you to at least know what smart objects are and how to use them deliberately. Okay, because you'll end up with a better quality file like that. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo a couple times here because I didn't actually need to do that stuff there. Okay, so that was a little demo in smart objects. But back to the original intention of this exercise, we're going to play with some selection tools to separate this line from its background. You guys are going to separate whatever you have chosen. Okay, I hope that you have a fairly plain background. That helps. Yeah, from here it does. Okay, just you know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just open a Photopea document A5 and then find an image that we can separate from the background. Okay, so you'll also notice that if you have a photograph that has depth of field in it, in other words, part of the image is blurry as it gets further away from the camera. Let me show you something, depth of field. How many of you have heard of this term before, depth of field? Okay. But you'll notice that if you use your smartphone camera and you get really close to an object, things in the background start to blur. Okay, here we go, here's a great example. Okay, there's a photograph taken of a leaf, and you'll see that as the leaf goes backwards there towards the branch is out of focus. Okay, so, and here's another example. These are focal lengths of lenses, don't worry about that. But you can see that the image that, the focal point of the image is in focus. It's nice and crisp. But then the stuff, as you get into the foreground and the background of the focal point, in other words, the crisp part of the image, it starts to blur, okay? And so this image actually, because the grass kind of becomes quite soft and green, you could do quite a good job of cutting out this camera and pasting it into another image if you want to do that. But in the case of, say, this leaf, at some point you're going to have to make a choice where to cut it off. Okay, you got nice sharp edges here to be able to trace around, but then if you wanted to include part of the branch, it's going to get fuzzier and fuzzier, and it's going to be harder to get a nice result when you're selecting it. Okay, because you don't have a nice sharp edge to select, so it's going to be a little tricky. So you could use a brush tool and paint that out a little bit. But yeah, that's just something to look out for if you're trying to remove something from a photo. Sometimes the soft focus is going to make it harder. Okay, but back to the object. So the selection tools that we're going to deal with are just below the top one on the toolbar there. So lasso, polygonal lasso, and magnetic lasso. We briefly went through these last week. If you do the first one, okay, you select the first one, you click and hold, and make sure now, if you have been dicking around with the layers, that you have the right one selected right now. And then this is tricky because it's all freehand through a mouse basically. You just have to click and drag, and then do your best job of lining it up like this around the edge. And if you're not over like super amazing detail, you can get pretty close if you're going to take your time. And right. Anyway, so that's probably not the best example there, but at least you know how to use it. Sometimes it's good. And then polygonal lasso lets you click repeatedly and lay down small little lines. Okay. Remember, if you click too fast or if you double click, it thinks that you want to close the selection, and it will automatically join your end point and start point together to create a selection. Okay. So that happens to me quite often if I can spend like a long time going around the edge of something, making it really neat, and then I accidentally click too many times, and then the selection like bisects itself, and I have to start all over again. Okay, like waste 15 seconds of my life. So you'll notice that a selection has this little dotted line around it. That's how you know you have selected that part of the image. But the selection is like, this dotted line is not glued to that image. You'll see that as I move my cursor inside there, they get that little four-way arrows, okay? And if you just click and drag, you can move the outline of your selection around. So maybe if you're a little bit off, you still have a second chance to kind of line it up and get it right on the edge there. Okay. And then when you're happy with it, you can now choose something to do. You could cut that part of the image out if that's what you want to do. I could edit, cut, or Control X, okay? And then hit Control V. So that's the same as going paste. And you'll see now, I'm going to get rid of this other layer. If I turn layer 2 off, which is the piece I just pasted in, there is unnamed, okay, with a hole in it, and then I'm seeing the white through there because my background layer is at the bottom of the list, and it's white. And if I turn it off, I'm going to see transparency there. Okay, there's no pixel there, no pixel information. Just so you remember. Okay, so anyway, that wasn't the best job because I only got half of this line. All right, and if I have a look at layer 2, I mean doesn't really help me. Okay, so I'm going to hit undo a few times. Back to before I cut that out. Get rid of layer 1 there. Right. There we go. Okay, so you have, excuse me. I need my coffee, that's what I need. So, yeah, you have this little dotted line around there. And if you decide that you don't like that selection, you want to get rid of it, you can deselect. Okay, in other words, clear the selection that you currently have going on. So you just go up to the select menu and go deselect. And then that selection will go away and you can start again with a new one. So that's one way you could do it. You could work your way around the edge with that. Or you can get magnetic lasso, which is a very cool tool. It kind of intelligently guesses where the edge is of the image by looking at the different contrast between the two areas. Okay, so it will understand, and I do have an image that kind of suits this at the moment. Some of you may find it harder, but it knows more or less the difference between the light colored areas and the dark colored areas, and so it assumes that there is a natural boundary or an edge there, and so it will follow that edge. Okay, as I move it around. So that's the bottom one down there, magnetic lasso list. So you just got to click and hold on that icon to get to it. Okay, and now I'm going to just click once, And you'll see that as I move my mouse cursor around the edge of this line, it's dropping little key points down there. Okay. The line looks a little bit wobbly because it's a little bit pixelated. Okay. And you'll see there that because that particular little spot of the line was very similar in color to the background, it actually couldn't tell the difference. Okay. So it placed my outline a little bit further in. But that's okay. I can go and fix that later with an additional selection. Okay. So I'm gonna keep going. And I'm not clicking at all, I'm just moving my mouse around the edge, and you'll see that if I start to stray, it still tries to follow my mouse, but you'll see I can move it like this. There we go. Okay, you can kind of see that line moving like it's alive, and that's the computer figuring out where the edge is. Okay, and if I come around here, I could probably grab that drop as well. No, it's having a hard time there. Okay, it's not perfect. There we go. But if I move quickly now, there we go. It's a nice little contrast there, so it's finding that edge. Oh, it missed that corner. You can click to deliberately place a point if you think you know better than the algorithm, which you do sometimes. So there we go, and then I can just click there to make sure it definitely takes that point. Oopsie. And then if you accidentally lay a point that you don't like, you can hit backspace a few times to delete the very last point that you laid down. Okay. So if I accidentally clicked over there and I'm like, ah, shit, I didn't mean to do that, just hit backspace, okay? Like you're deleting a letter. And then it will take some of those points out. And then you can just correct it again and carry on going around the edge like that until you get back to the beginning of the selection, or you can double click. Oops, just click once. Oh, there it is, there it is. Okay, it's hard to see, but it's there. And then there was this little accident over there where I missed that little piece. Okay, so I can just go in back with my polygonal lasso, okay, and I'll just I'll grab that, or maybe my regular lasso. And then I want you to have a look at these icons up here, because you can use these to combine selections together. So you'll see I've still got my little dotted outline of the first one to put in there. I don't want to lose that selection just because I'm missing this piece. I'm just going to add this little piece into the existing selection. So I'm going to go up to this icon here. It says replace at the moment. So that's its default mode. And if you move it to the right-hand side, you'll see the next one says unite. Okay, that means it will unite the two selections together. It's going to add them. Okay, so select that over there. And then when you click, okay, oh shit. Let me just click and then let go. Okay, there we go. So when I did that, it now added that little piece into the selection. So that was helpful. And then if you decide that you want to remove a piece from a selection, you can go up to that same little thing and then just go to subtract instead. So now wherever you lay a selection, if it crosses into an existing selection, it will remove that piece. So if there was something over here that I wanted to remove, I could just go in here and let's see, select it like this and then let go. And you'll see now that it has removed that from the selection. If I just go back to my rectangular selection tool over there, I can move this outline around. You can see it there that that piece has now been subtracted. Okay, if I want to add it back in, well, I could hit undo, but I could also just change this back to unite on the selection, and then I could choose any form of selection really. Maybe I'll do polygonal lasso this time. And then I'm just going to click, so I need to click outside the selection currently. If I click inside it, it's going to think I want to move it. So I'm going to click somewhere here, and I'm just going to draw an extra bubble around that one and close it up like that. Oopsie. Oh, I was on replace mode. Excuse me, I was supposed to go to unite. I screwed it up. Let me try that again. So I'll just draw it around there. There we go. Okay. So if I go over here, I can move that selection edge to show you. Oh. There we go. Okay, it filled that back in. So you can keep the selection, and then if I want to go ahead and select this bottom part as well, I can just leave it on unite, and even though they don't touch, it will still include the extra selection that I draw. So this one will still be there. And then I'm just going to go to magnetic lasso again, and then I can grab this piece around here. Oops, having a problem there. Okay, there we go. So this is pretty quick. Oops, click a point there. Did it do it? Oh, I don't know if I clicked. I think I forgot to turn it on. Anyway, but that'll work if you try it. Okay, so now that I have this thing selected, I can do something with it. I can copy it, and then I can paste it, and it'll pop into a new layer like that. And now I've isolated this thing from the background. Okay, now if I want to open up something else, like I could replace the background if I wanted to. So I could be like, wall. Sure, this one. And I'll copy that and quickly paste it in here. Okay, that's a bit small, so I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, then I'm just going to move it underneath that layer that I pasted in. There we go. Okay. And then, with my brush tools, I could make an extra layer in between these, and I could paint in a shadow. Okay, and we're going to do brush tools now. Brush tool. Give an example here. Take the hardness down. Change the color to black. Is it coming out? Why is it not coming out? Oh, I know why. My layer's in the wrong place. Okay, I've got to put it over there, between the lime and the background. There we go. Okay, so that is really fake and ridiculous, obviously. That's a terrible shadow. But I can go to the opacity of this layer, okay, or I could change the blending mode to something like multiply. Okay, didn't make a big difference, but I'm going to change the opacity here and take that down to maybe there. Okay, and then maybe I can move this little spot around as well, like that. Maybe like that. Okay, there we go. So that's maybe a more believable result. So I don't know what image you were working with, but I managed to take this piece of the lime out and then I replaced the background. Okay, so you can composite images like that. Just be careful about the ones you choose. And it's just going to be a skill you'll find useful. If you want some element to appear like it's on a different background, or you want to duplicate something, maybe some architectural feature or something, you could isolate one of the columns and then you can copy and paste it a few times and scale it. If you want to do a mock-up of a facade or something like that, or some kind of interior fitting. All right, and one or two of the other people had a bit of an accident when we went over masks. Remember, mask we just add to a layer like that, okay? And then if you paint into the mask, it erases that part of the image, okay? You'll see I erased it there. But it's not actually gone, you can turn the mask off, okay? I hope you guys remember this stuff. Okay, so there we go. Did that work for everyone? Did you manage to successfully use those tools? And which one did you use? What did you do with yours? Magnetic, that's
No,
right.
I did the
Polygon, yeah, because you have a pretty straight edge object.
Why did I not copy? I did it again and I repeated this one, but it still did not copy.
Copy the error is empty. Oh, because you are on layer one.
And then if I press the here, I'm done.
That's weird. Okay, Control C. And then just hit Control V now. Errors, that is so strange.
I'll try that.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. Just duplicate this one there. Recommission denied.
Could it have something to do with the
This one?
lines on the top?
No. I think this is totally being stupid. Okay, so what I would do is save this file,
If I guilty.
save it, and then just close Photopea and open the file again. Open Photopea again and open the file. Probably didn't download. strange. Oh, but you can cut it.
Can't paste it.
Can't paste it.
That's bizarre.
Oh, this block, site's been blocked from seeing text image blocked. Why did it say that? Allow to see the clipboard. Okay.
Okay.
How random. Okay, Chrome, the browser was actually blocking it. So weird. Yeah.
Photos, so I have a copy of photos transferred.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pasted.
Try it again.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't think it copied successfully from the tab. Just right. No, go back to that image. Right click on it. Copy image. No. Still not. Did it work previously? No, that's odd. Okay, so it's just remembering what's inside there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In your case, you just have to save it to the computer and then just go open and replace. Mm-hmm.
I don't have that tracking usually.
You don't have the what tool?
The circle you usually.
Oh, okay. So you need to just click and hold on that one. No, that one above it. Yeah. So, oh, okay. Quick selection is a tool I haven't gone through yet. Just go up to that one there. Or the one up there. Oh, there. Okay. Your one is done. I think yours, because your toolbar, I think is a little bit spotty. So, yeah. So you can choose one of those. Right. Yeah. You did it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know, like, yeah, I want to go place the team meeting. I'm just saying that.
Enter.
I think,
You're on the left.
yeah.
I think that's great. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So those are a couple ways that we can create selections, and there are some other tools that you can use as well. Advanced selecting. So a magic wand, basically, kind of how to explain it? Okay, let's find another image that's on a plain background. Okay, then I can show you how magic wand works. So I'm going to choose, I don't know, a croissant. I could so do with one right now, but I need one against a plain background. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's actually a PNG. No, let me choose another one for this example. That one there. Gorgeous. Copy. Actually, no. Let's get out of the habit of copying and pasting. Okay. I only do it for the sake of the exercise, but we should actually just save the image this way and work with smart objects instead. 9001. Okay. I'm going to go to photo B. And I don't know if I told you guys, but you can duplicate a layer as well. If you want to create more than one of these lines, I go over here to this line layer. Yeah, it's that one. And if I just take this layer 1 and I click and drag it down onto the new layer icon, you get a copy of it. Okay. If you right click on it, you can also go duplicate layer. And then it make copies of it. And then you can see I can move them all over the place. So you can have multiple copies of something. And you could put little drop shadows on them, and you could make them seem like there's 3 of these things. Or you could make them seem a little bit smaller like that. Okay, but if I was to like flip it around like that, you'd see the light sources coming from a different direction. So that's going to be a pretty, like, that's not a good result. You want to try and make sure that the light looks like it's coming from a consistent direction. Okay, over there, and then the shadows on the back side. If you put something in that looks wrong like that, then it's going to stand out that it's a Photoshop job. Okay. So, oh yeah, where was I? Had this picture of the croissant. Okay, so I'm going to, let's do a new document, okay? So let's go File, Create, and let's make it a screen document, and we can do HD again. What is it? 720 or 1280 or something. Yeah. Okay, so make one of those documents, and it'll be 72 DPI because we're just going to do screen. We're not going to print it. New. Okay. Here it is there. Create. Okay, wonderful. Now I'm going to place that image of a croissant. Where was it? There it is. I'm going to make it a little bigger. Okay, snap. Okay, now we can use this light colored background to advantage here. Okay, it's all pretty much a flat color. And so what Magic Wand does is it selects areas that are the same tone or the color in one sort of big selection. Okay, sometimes it gets a little bit wrong, but there's a setting you can play with here called tolerance, and that will tell you kind of how aggressive it is in comparing colors. You can kind of make it less choosy, and then we can include part of the shadow here, because you can see that it goes from a kind of a bright white to a slightly darker kind of mottled grey color as we hit the shadow area that's being cast underneath the croissant here. So I completely lost my train of thought there. So we can choose to select only the very, very pure white areas, okay, with our Magic Wand if we have the tolerance set on 0. So just go up there and type in 0. Oh, and by the way, Magic Wand is under there. If you don't see it and you've got something else like that showing, just have a click through these icons. On Lizanne's computer, she's got her toolbar is quite small, so it's merged some of the icons together. So like her lasso tools live underneath this over here. Okay, so that if you don't see it at first, just click and hold on some of these things to find the one. But it is over there. Okay, where is it? There, Magic Wand. Okay, or you can hit W on the keyboard. So with that selected, go over to tolerance and click 0. Okay, and then click somewhere on like the black part of the image. Over there. Okay, the reason it gave me the square selection here is because if I turn off my background layer, you'll see that this doesn't quite fill there. Okay, that's why it's selecting that transparent area. So I'm going to click somewhere on the white area here like this. All right, and you can see that it has grabbed only that, like this is a white pixel, that's a white pixel, that's a white pixel. All of these are perfectly white pixels, but then over here, as we get to the shadow part of this image, they're becoming a little bit more gray. And so that's why it's excluded them from the selection. Because our tolerance was at 0, it was like, no, I'm selecting white pixels or nothing else, okay? But if I increase that tolerance to say 15, it'll start to include part of this shadow area. Okay, it's not so picky about choosing only white pixels. It'll start to include some of these different colors here. So I'm just going to go to selection, deselect to get rid of that selection because I want to do a different one now. I've changed my tolerance to 15, and you'll see that there's something called feather as well. And this is how blurry the edge of your selection will be. And this can be quite useful when you're dealing with images of different resolution, or maybe you do have something like it's a carpet and it's a little bit fuzzy. Okay, you can choose to have a little bit of a fuzzy edge around your selection by using the feather setting. And we'll go back to using the lasso tools with the feather setting as well. And you can also right click. There's also a lot of these tools that I'm mentioning are available just from right clicking, okay? So if you right click inside a selection, for example, you'll see some things that are relevant to the selection tool. So I could transform the selection, okay? So I could change the selection or even rotate it or something like that. And then when you're done, you can click the tick. Oops, I should click the tick. So I missed it. Modify. There we go. Okay, there we go. So I've adjusted that selection, and then when I'm happy, I can copy, cut, paste, or whatever I want to do. But you can also go to it and you can say refine edge. And then you can do, okay, no, I don't, okay, excuse me, I don't want to teach you this yet. This is I was building up to that. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Feather. Okay, so I can change the feathering over there. I can change it to, oopsie. Let me quickly copy and paste this. Control C, Control V. There we go. Okay, you'll see it's a nice sharp edge that I got around there. Okay, now if I go back to the selection point and I change my feathering to 20, okay, and I can also change the size of it by clicking on this little arrow and doing the slider. Okay, let's leave it on, say, 24 there. I should be able to, I think I can't change it after I've already done it. Let me see quickly. Yeah, okay, so you need to first select the feather before you do the selection. But now, there we go. You'll see that the edges have been rounded. That's because the selection is much softer. And if I go and copy and paste this now, have a look at that. Okay, and if I go and copy another piece, or let me change my feathering down to say 4 pixels, and copy this piece here, make sure I'm on the right layer, copy that one, paste that over there. Okay, that's the difference between a feathering of 24 pixels and only 4 pixels. And if I go to this one over here, and I just do, let me change my feathering to nothing, so there is no feathering. And I copy that piece there, and I paste it. Okay, let me turn the other ones on, there we go. So there's a lot of feathering, 24 pixels, there's 4 pixels, and there's no feathering. Okay, so you can see for yourself the difference that makes. That's what I mean about it gets a nice fuzzy edge around your selection. And this is very useful if you're trying to blend things like grass or any kind of texture, to feather the selection a little bit so that you have the soft edge, because then when I lay them up next to one another, let me use layer 1 here as an example. I'm going to just select this, go to, whoopsie, where is it? What's this one, layer 2? Okay, if I try and lay these end to end like this by making copies, okay, you can see this edge here. It's quite obvious. But if I were to feather that a little bit, and if I use this one as an example, layer 2, and I'm blending croissant pastry here, I can't believe. Okay, and then if I just lay that over there like that. Okay, because I'm laying a soft feathered edge on top of another image like that, it blends them in together. You see, I mean, I'm starting to get pixelated here because I'm zooming in a lot. There's the individual pixels. Okay, but you'll see that that result is nice and smooth compared to this jagged line that I can see here, this like hard edge line. And that's just the advantage of using some feathering in your selection. Okay, so we went down a little side tangent there. That was the feather setting. Okay, and feather applies to quite a few selections. Most of them have options to feather them. All right, I think you could even feather, even feather magnetic lasso. Yeah, you can feather pretty much any selection. Okay, so let's go back to Magic Wand. Okay, I'm going to leave my feathering on 0. Okay, my tolerance is 15. I'm going to increase that again to, let's say, 35. And I'm going to click on the white area here. Oh, excuse me, I need to be on that layer. There we go. And you'll see it's cropped it quite close now to the croissant. It's including more and more of this mottled area that is not quite perfectly white. And I can just adjust that with the tolerance. And then if I want to get even closer up there, I can relax the tolerance some more. I can make it like 60. It's super tolerant. And now if I click on there, you'll see it's getting really close. And then I can quickly hold in the shift key, okay? And you'll see that automatically enables this unite mode in selections. And then if I click on these areas manually, I can just get them to be included in the selection. Oh, you see that part right there? That was so close in tone to this part of the croissant, it ended up including that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to hit undo to go back. That's obviously a step too far. All right, so and you can see there, it's also starting to include this part of it because my tolerance is now maybe a little bit too much. So if I just go back one step, back to before I selected that. Let me just try again. Let me do a tolerance of like 32. There we go. Okay. And then I can manually go in here and just add these little bits in. Just by holding in shift or clicking on unite and just clicking that area there. Okay, and now that's pretty much done most of the hard work for me. I didn't have to trace around the edge of this thing. It just recognized that the background was pretty much plain. So the other thing you need to understand now is that I have the background selected. I don't have the croissant selected. So I can go and delete the background now. I can hit the delete key. Oh, it's going to tell me it's a smart object. That's right, I went to open in place. Okay, so let me quickly right click on it and go to rasterize. All right, now if I do that again, I just hit delete or backspace, I think also works. Yep, it removed the background. Okay, yay. So now I have this croissant. I still have this, the selection is still there though, so I can go to select, deselect to get rid of it. There, it's gone. Okay, now I have this croissant all by itself and it's transparent. And if I click the white background now, there it is on the white background, but it was already on a white background, so that's a bit lame. But let me quickly do an adjustment on this. Like, let's go to image hue or saturation, and let's check the lightness down a bit and the saturation up, and hue. Let me go to colorize. There we go. Whoa. Okay, there we go. So now I have that. I've taken that croissant off its white background, and now I've put it on a new background. Okay, it wasn't perfect. There's some areas that I could still go into here. So I could maybe go back with a different tool. Maybe lasso select. Okay, and I'm just going to go into these areas and just clean out where the background didn't quite go. Okay, I'm there. Delete. Okay. And I'm just hitting Control D there to deselect, and then I'm going to cut this bit out there. Okay, delete. There we go. So I can get a little bit better. And then if I want to make this look more realistic, I can right-click on it and go to Blending Options, which brings me to Styles here. And then I can add a drop shadow effect. Okay, that's quite cheesy. But if I make it really soft and I drop the opacity a little bit, maybe to take it in over there. Just tweak the settings a little bit. Maybe make it smaller. Okay, that's a better result. So that was just a shortcut to selecting. Okay, it's using the magic wand. And then quick selection is another kind of smart tool, which I have never used. Okay, so don't worry about that. I don't even know how to teach that. Magic wand, yeah. I don't want to linger on every single tool. I just want to give you kind of an overview. But quick selection, color range. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to show you, and you can invert a selection too. Let me show you that quickly. Okay. If I had this, let me do a selection over there. Okay, and I actually want to select the inverse of that. In other words, everything around the selection, I can go to select inverse. Okay, and there, the selection is now selecting the outside of this. If I go and move this, there we go. I just moved the selection away there. It's kind of like cutting it, but it's still within the same layer. It took everything around that selection, but if I go back to where it was over there and I just invert it once more, select inverse, okay, it should be selecting the inside part over there now. So I'll go and move it. There we go. All right, and you'll see that as I move it, it still calculates that effect of that drop shadow there. Okay, I can turn it on and off. And as I move this around, you'll see this piece also keeps that drop shadow. So that's a nifty thing. Okay, so there we go. I'm not going to go into refine edge at the moment. That's a little bit complicated. Masking, moving selected data. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about that stuff? Okay. Oh, let me do one last thing. We'll take a break now in 5 minutes. Let's find another image. I'm going to do something called color range select. This is quite useful. Let's choose another image. Something with some color in it that we can remove. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to do colorful beach houses. You know those ones in Milton? Yeah, look at that. Muizenberg, sorry. Muizenberg, they both start with an M. Okay, so let's say, this one. Nice bright one. This is perfect. Okay, this is a great example here. Work up. So I'm going to go save image as, Get on houses, save. Go back to photo P here. I'm just going to use the same document. Okay, I'm just going to turn off all these layers or delete them. Delete. Cool. And my background needs to be white again. Okay, so I'm going to go down here to Paint Bucket tool. Remember that. If you see a gradient, you're on the right place. You just need to click and hold. Go to Paint Bucket tool or hit G, and then select white over here. I'm going to drag this into the far corner, and you see here that there are RGB values given. Okay, our document is an RGB color at the moment, and I can change it to CMYK color, which basically gives you a kind of a preview of what it would look like if it was in print. And you'll see immediately that the colors become a little more dull when you change it to CMYK mode. That's because screens naturally appear more vibrant than print because they are backlit. Okay, there's a light shining through, so everything looks like super rich and colorful and vivid because it's backlit. And if you've ever looked at like one of those posters in Grand West or one of those like backlit posters in a shopping mall or something, it stands out a lot more than one that's just printed. Okay, and that's just because there's light passing through one and not the other. And because of that, if I were to change this document into a different color mode, if I went to like edit, it's not quite the same as, what is it? Image. Okay, never mind. We'll just skip that part. Okay, I just want a white background. Let's go back there. Okay, so there are RGB values here. Okay, so you'll notice that if whatever color I choose has a particular RGB value, that's a certain amount of red. 69 red, 89 green, 132 blue. If I mix all those values together, red, green, and blue, it gives me this exact tone. Okay, so if you're working with an image that's branded or something, or you're working for a client and they have a particular color that they want you to use, and they understand that you're working digitally, they should give you some kind of color reference, either a CMYK reference, if the document was like that, and you'll probably come across this if you use other packages, or an RGB reference, and then there's a hex reference, which is basically a unique code that corresponds to the same color. And the way to check if you have perfect white and perfect black is you want to see maximum here. Perfect white is always 255. That's just the way bits and bytes work. It's a weird number, but 255 is the highest, okay? And that's pure white. And pure black is 000 for all those values, okay? So if you're up here and you think that you've picked white, but you see that these numbers are not all at 255, I mean, this looks almost white to me, okay? But it's not quite there. Just need to make sure that it's reading 255 on all of these values to be absolute 100% white, okay? And go okay. And then just paste it in there. Okay, so we've got a white background. Okay, so I'm just going to go and paste in those houses. Okay, open and placed. That's not a word. Open and place. There we go. Okay, wonderful. I'm not going to mess with the size. I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. I'll turn off those controls. Yep. Okay, and you'll see it's a smart object because I went open and place, which is fine. If I start to edit the pixel data, remember it's going to ask me to rasterize it. Okay, but I've got a great example here to make a selection based on color range. So if, for example, somebody said, hey, I'm the owner of this yellow house. I mean, it's quite vivid. I want to change it to maybe a shade of purple. Can you show me what that would look like? Okay, well, conveniently, most of it is a kind of a solid shade here. So you could do it the long way around, okay? You could go in with your selection tool. Let's say polygonal, because we're dealing with straight edges here, so I think this suits it. And then I can just click over these images like this, okay? And I could make my way around to, I'm going to skip out the front wall over here. And I'm going to go selecting around there like that. Okay, now I've got this piece, but now I still need to clip out the satellite dish and probably the window frames. Maybe he wants to leave them the same color, okay? So if at this stage I'm like, nah, that's cool, I'm not going to go any further, I'm just going to copy that, copy, and then I'm just going to go paste. Okay, there it is there. So I've got a copy on top of it, and if I turn that layer off, if I just move it over here, you can see there it is there. Okay, I can do a hue adjustment on this. Okay, so I can tint the image slightly and make it seem like it's a like a nice purple color. Let me go to hue or saturation. And I could do this with an adjustment layer as well. Okay, you can do it by changing the pixel information itself by doing it here and sort of baking it into the layer, or I can use an adjustment layer. But the problem with that is because I still need the background of the other houses around it, that adjustment layer is going to affect that layer too. So that wouldn't work. So if I went to here, hue saturation, and I changed the hue like this, I'm like, whoa, okay, there's a nice purple color. That's fine, but now I have green sky, okay? So that doesn't work there. And if I move it down there, it's now applying to the background. So that is not a good, it's not convenient for me to use an adjustment layer here. It's easier for me to just go into this layer here, this piece that I've selected, okay? It's turning and hiding on this bottom layer. And go to over here, image adjustments, hue saturation, that way, okay? And now I can just do it to that selected piece. So as I drag this over here, you can see I'm changing the color. So there we go, it's purple. I can make it more saturated, so more vivid, or I can kind of move it towards if I take all the saturation down, the hue is almost irrelevant, okay, because there's no color showing through. But I could make it gray there if I wanted to. Okay, so let me take it back to that purple color. That was what I was going for. But you'll see it's also changing the color of window frames. Okay, they're turning green. It's not so great. Take my saturation down there. And then I can adjust the lightness here as well, but it tends to wash out a little bit. Maybe a couple of points might make a difference. There we go, -5. All right, and if you're having problems finding the exact thing, or if you want to kind of slap this color over everything and not just shift all the colors equally, you can put the colorize button on. And then you'll see that it affects everything in the selection. Let me just go to, why is it so saturated? There we go, saturation. You'll see that the window frames, the satellite dish, everything is getting tinted a little bit of a shade of purple. But if I take off colorize, color works a little bit way. It's just shifting the colors to their next one in the spectrum. Okay, it's not applying the same color everywhere. So, but let me go back to where it was. Yeah, something like that. Jeez, that's garish. There we go. And then I click OK. Cool. So if I turn this layer off, I've still got the yellow house underneath, but there it is over there. But I have unfortunately turned these windows green. So I can go in there and I can mask it manually, or I could put a mask layer on there. Just go over there, click a mask layer, and then I could maybe take this selection over here around the window. Okay, and then I can just put black inside there to hide it, because I'm in my mask now. So I'm just going to fill that with black. Oh, there we go. Is that correct? Yeah, if I turn this off. Oh, the window frames were blue originally. Okay. So you'll see now, if I turn this layer off there, I've masked that part out. Okay, so I can go to the next window over here, and then that satellite dish, I want to take that part out of the selection. Okay, so I'm going to go refine this a little bit. I'm just going to go to lasso. I'm going to put it onto subtract mode, and I'm just going to draw around there. There we go. Okay, skip that little bit out. I'm still on the mask part of my layer. And I'm just going to paint black in there. There we go. Okay. And then I can work my way onto the other details. Okay, I can work my way down to the door and this stuff over there. And then I can effectively, just take this layer and basically put a new color onto this guy's house. Okay, job done. But the original point of this was to show you how to use select color range. Okay, so I'm going to turn this layer off. I'm going to pretend like we didn't do all of that. And I want you to go to select and then color range from the menu. Okay, and now you can choose a color by clicking somewhere on the image. And it will try and select all the colors that it sees in the image, like the one that you've chosen. And you can choose how much. You remember that tolerance setting? Well, this fuzziness slider works kind of the same. Okay, so just click on, let's say, the yellow house. There we go. And it gives a little preview of the image, the black and white preview, which is almost like looking at a mask. Okay, but it's saying these are the parts of the image that it has found that match the color that you clicked on. Okay, so when I clicked on the yellow of the wall, it's showing me that these are the hot, like the highlighted part of the image here. Like, okay, it's found yellow in this area of the image. This is basically a thumbnail. Okay, and if I click on, say, blue, you'll see that there. It's now selecting the blue, that tonal range of blue. And you'll see that that little piece over there is picking up the blue that's on this guy's front door. So if I increase the fuzziness now, you'll see it starts to find blue in all these kind of, you'll see that there's a little bit of blue mixed into all these colors as I increase the fuzziness. Okay, so I'll probably want to keep the slider quite close down here so that I don't get anything else selected. I just want that blue color. Oopsie, and you'll see that if I go right down to 0, it's even part of the sky is probably not selecting all that well. So I can go in and supplement those colors. I can kind of I can hold in shift and I can select a few more colors. Can I? No. Here we go. Oh, replace. Let me go mode plus. Okay, then you can add extra colors into the selection, like up there. And I can click on the different parts of the sky. If it's a little bit faded, maybe it's a little bit more blue in one area than another, I can just put the mode onto plus and I can add all those colors into the selection. And then if I decide I also want to select orange, I can leave it in the plus mode and click on the orange part of the house. But because that orange tone is coming through the colors elsewhere, okay, it's also going to pick up that. So this is going to give me a pretty crap result right now. If I click OK, you'll see it attempts to put a selection around all of that. Okay, it's a bit of a mess. And if I was to copy and paste this now, okay, remember I just wanted the sky, but it's ended up selecting a lot of this other crap as well that I then have to go and trim away from the selection. Right, so let me go back a few steps and just play with those settings a bit more. Let me go back to Cape Town houses here, select color range. I'm going to make sure I just get, let's say this, let's go for the yellow house again. I'm going to click there. Wait, I'm going to go to replace now. I don't want to be adding colors, so I'm just going to go to replace. There we go. Click on the yellow, and then I'm going to add a couple different tones of yellow to make sure that this muddy part down by the wall is picking up. Okay, because if I scroll down here, I can see it might exclude it a little bit if I change this fuzziness slider. So if I take it too much, it's going to start to select part of the house next to it. So you have to play around with the settings to get something that's comfortable, that works with, that's going to save you the most amount of time. Okay, so I'm going to go to plus mode and just add in some of the dark. There we go. As I'm clicking around, you'll see this comes a little bit more vivid. And let's get some of the shadow underneath there. Whoopsie, it's getting this one there. Okay, never mind. I'm going to click OK. This is create a selection around that colored area. I'm going to go Control V, sort of V. There we go. So that was a much easier way to create a selection. I didn't have to go and mask out the window frames later because I just used the color to my advantage. And I got the selection tool to pick a certain color range out. Okay, and then I can, because I've got a little bit of the house next to it, that's okay. I can go into this with my rectangular selection here, for example, and I can go and add to it with a polygonal selection. I can make sure I'm in unite mode there. Go over here, just take this bit away. There we go. So I've got a selection around this. I'm just going to delete it now. Delete. There we go. I'm going to deselect. Oops. Select. Deselect. Okay. Now if I turn, okay, I've just selected the yellow. I haven't done anything with it, but there it is there. Okay. And now I could go back in and I could maybe do a levels adjustment on it. Okay. Levels. I can drag these sliders around and I can change the color like that. I can make it more muddy color. I can boost these mid-tones. I can do the highlights. I can take contrast out of it. Look at that. All kinds of weird stuff. Okay, you can play around with what effect you actually want to do to it, but at least I've got it selected. You'll see in the dark parts of the shadow, it looks inverted almost. It didn't quite select that area. So maybe I should go in and fix that manually. Okay, but it can save you some time using that way of selecting. All right. So that takes us pretty much to the end of the selection chapter, chapter 5. And I think we'll go through just a couple brush tools today, just the basic ones, and then we'll do tutorial 2. And then, yeah, I don't think I'll use the full 3 hours because it's rough. It's rough in the guys. We'll just see how excited you get. Okay, so it's 11 past. Let's be back here at past. Okay. Thanks. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so there we go. We played around with color range selection. Okay, good to save you some time. I want you to do tutorial 2 now, so I'm just going to open it up here quickly. Where is it? No, it's not this one. Okay, but if you want to get those files that you need to do this, if you've started reading Tut2 already, go ahead and read the page. Okay. So it's pretty simple. We're not even going to use the tools that we used today necessarily. It's just the transform tools and the warp tools that we used from the other day. And now you know something about smart objects, so you should be able to pull that off as well. Right, there we go, Tut2. Okay, so I'm going to work with layers, selections, transformations, and adjustment layers. Yes, I don't know if there's adjustment layer in this. Don't think so, no, probably not. Okay, but we're going to do all this other stuff over here. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you are. I just want you to click on that or type in that tiny URL there. Okay, so you're going to go to that address in your browser. I can click on it because I'm on the computer. You're going to have to type it in manually. Okay, tinyurl.com/bhcdp1. And that is a link to a Google Drive. And in there you will find images C and D. And these are the ones we're going to use in the tutorial. Okay. So I'm going to open the images, but I'm not going to do the tutorial. Okay. So let me just click on this tiny URL there. Copy and paste it in. Okay, so you need to save the files to your computer so that they come in as smart objects. Okay, C and D, this is what it looks like. I'm just going to right click on here and go download, and right click on there and go download. Okay. Okay, so number C is a billboard, and you'll see that it's in perspective there. Okay, and it's blank. It was originally it did have something on it, but I made it blank for this tutorial. Okay. So what I want to do is open that image up, and you're going to use this as the basis for your document. Okay. So you're not going to create a new document and put image C in there. You're just going to open image C straight from your hard drive. Okay. And then the file, well, you'll basically be editing image C, which is a JPEG file, by the way. Okay, then you're going to go and add in image D, okay, and you're going to do this by opening and placing it. So image C, you should have image C in there, and it will be your background layer already, and then you're going to go open and place and put image D in there. Right, and then I want you to create a selection of the add artwork only. So get rid of that building that's around it. We're just going to use that artwork of that couple standing there. It's an advert for Camper shoes. Right. So I'm not going to demonstrate it for you. I want you to use the selection tools. I want you to just isolate that artwork, okay? Get rid of the building. And then you're going to use the transform tool. Okay, use the control key to scale or shear the artwork so that it fills the blank billboard area underneath on layer C. Okay. So you're basically going to take the one billboard of the couple and you're going to transform it and cut it and paste it so that it looks like it is the artwork that is in billboard C. Okay. And there we go. There's the adjustment layer. You're going to perform a color correction on the building image C so that it's just a black and white image. Okay, and you're going to use an adjustment layer for that. So you need to work out what order your layers need to be so that you have, should be pretty straightforward, so that you have the artwork in color and then you have a black and white billboard image underneath. Okay, image C is going to be black and white. And there's an example at the bottom of the page. Okay, I've written the word example on there, but you won't have that watermark, that text there. Okay, but that's what you need to make it look like. maybe I can just drag and drop this in here. Sweet. Okay. Okay, if you're working on Chrome, you can actually, when the file downloads, it pops into the bar at the bottom. You can actually drag that file straight off the bottom of Chrome, off that bottom edge, and into Photopea. It's a little bit of a shortcut. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time, and you can crack on with Tut 2. Okay, so let's look at some brush tools. I think it was you guys that I went through with. Did I show you about hardness and size? Okay. I just realized what I said. So we're going to look at some more brush settings today. So let's create a new document. I'm going to go with HD again. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And I want you to find an image. Okay, this is a classic retouching thing here. I'm going to find an image of a person's face. Okay, face. And we're going to do some things. No, that guy's got glasses on. Whoa there! Here we go. Freckles, I can work with that. There we go. Copy. Okay, Control V.
So a face with imperfection.
No. The tools that you don't have to have imperfection. There's no imperfection here anyway. Freckles are freckles. Don't be frecklist.
So basically something that's not image.
Yeah, it doesn't actually matter because really we can do. I can show you these tools on anything. Okay, I'm just using a face because it's got nice smooth skin tones, and you can use that to kind of blend it. It's just a good example for the tool. But you're welcome to use whatever image you want. Okay, so we can let's go through the brush tools here quickly. Okay, we've gone through selection there, magic wand, and then quick selection are basically kind of AI modes of selection where it just I'm not even going to go into that right now. If you're interested, you can look at your notes. Okay. Don't worry about the crop tool. The eyedropper. Okay, so eyedropper is useful when you want to choose certain colors from an image. Okay, if I want to get exactly the color of brown that's in her hair there, so that I can paste it in somewhere else, or I can paint in some areas. Okay, I don't want to have to sit here and like guesstimate it. Although what you can do is when you have color picker open, you can click somewhere on the background of the image. Okay, over there, and you'll see it dumps the color over there. Right, that's my foreground and my background color. And when you're working on a background layer, when you erase it, it erases it to the color of the background color that you have selected, unless you're using transparency. Okay, never mind, forget I said that. But as I click around this image, okay, if I click onto her teeth over there, I'm going to get a light color. There it is there. If I click onto her eye, I'm going to get that piece of eye color. It's a bit brownish over there. The tip of her nose, I can pick that color up there. Okay, so you can click around, you can choose colors like that, or you can use the eyedropper tool. Okay, you just click on it over there, and then wherever you click, hey, where is it gone? Sample size. Oh, there we go. It's changing quickly. So you'll see that if I click on a tooth now, there, it puts that color into the picker for me. If I click on an eye, it puts the eye color in there. Okay. And then if I go down to my paintbrush tool, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 or 7 down the list there. Okay. It's going to come out in that color now. Okay. So I'm working on layer 1. Where is my cursor? Oh, it's so small I can't even see it. Make it bigger. There we go. Okay. And then I can very quickly, with this tool, if I want to quickly choose another color, I can just hold in the Alt key without having to change the tool. Okay, I've still got brush tool, but I just hold it in, Alt key, and then I can click somewhere else on the image, like on the tip of her nose, and I can pick up that color, and then I can paint a bit with that. And if I want some of this hair color, I'll just hold in Alt, choose a piece of the hair over there, and then I can paint in those colors like that. Okay, so it's coming out fuzzy right now because my hardness is quite low. If I increase it to 90%, I get a much sharper edge around the outside of my brush. Okay, and then there's some interesting brushes over here that you could use to try and paint in effects like foliage, maybe sketching medium. This has got kind of quite a rough nib to it. Let's see if I increase the size. Look at that. Okay, that's quite a weird brush. But you could use this for grass maybe, trees. Okay, it's up to you. You can play with brushes in your own time. Sure, she looks like she's growing a beard here. Okay, so I'm hitting undo a few times. That's just your most basic brush, and it's pretty. It's useful, but you can't do anything too artistic with it because the mouse is really going to hold you back. Pencil is basically like a tiny brush, but it's got much sharper edges. Okay, so by default it always comes out quite sharp edged like that. Even if my hardness is on 0, it's almost always quite sharp edged. But generally, because it's simulating a pencil, you use it in quite small amounts, like 2 pixels. Okay, it's used for creating small, fine little lines. If I wanted to maybe paint a little bit in there, give it a little bit more of a gap. Okay, I could use a pencil, maybe just kind of put that in there like that. All right, you want to work in small details. So the next one down, these are the more interesting ones over here. Let's do eraser first because that kind of goes with pencil. Okay, so if I click on eraser tool here, it basically works like a brush. You can have hardness and size settings for eraser as well. But instead of placing the color that you have down there, the foreground color, it's going to erase a hole in this image. And it's not the same as a mask, remember? I could, if I wanted to hide this part of the image and show the background layer underneath, but I wanted to have the option of changing my mind later, I would rather use a mask. But if you're confident that you're definitely not going to use that part of the image again, then you can go ahead and just erase it. Okay, so you're going to use the eraser tool, and you can even configure your eraser to look like a sketchy eraser. You don't have to have a round, hard shape as your brush. You can choose any one of these ones from this list here. Okay, and then you can go to brushes over here, this panel, and you can adjust things like the scatter and the angle of the brush. So you could choose like a chisel tip something. Look at this, it's like calligraphic. Okay, and then I could change the angle here 165 degrees, and you'll see that it's rotating there. So now it comes out like this. If I rotate the angle some more, to make it come out upright. So you could do some cool effects like this. In fact, if I change the opacity of this down to say 44, let me choose a nice bright color here, like that lime color. As I go over here, why is it coming out that color? That's weird. Where's my color? That one. Red brush. I'm just trying to understand why it's coming out white.
Change the brush to and change it back. Mine was also doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving a preview, but it's still coming out white. It's very strange. Okay, anyway, normally that works. Size. Okay, it must be a bit of a bug. Never mind. But you'd be able to change the color and some of the brush properties like that. Okay, that's an ugly mess. So I'm just going to hit undo a few times. All right. So we were looking at the eraser tool. So there we go. If I erase it now, let me choose a regular shape there. Oh, my opacity is only 40. So I'm only erasing at opacity 44% here. If I didn't want to erase all the way through, I could just do it like this. Okay, I could change the opacity of how hard I'm pressing with the eraser, basically. So if I wanted to just subtly rub out an area of the image, I could change the opacity of my eraser before I start clicking around. Okay, and as I click over it, you can see it's starting to build up. Okay, darker and darker and darker. Change it with softer brush. Okay, you can do these kind of effects, and I can just build it up. But there's no reason I want to be erasing a cheek. I'm just showing you how it's, how the eraser works. And then paint bucket tool. This one is pretty familiar with this one, but I want to show you the other little cousin that lives next to it, which is gradient tool. Okay, so create a new layer above this one, a blank one, layer 2. And you'll see that when you select gradient, it's got the little gradient thing over it. Up here, you have a couple options to change about it. So right now, the default gradient when you select the tool will be a blend from your foreground to background color. Okay, so you'll see there's a preview of the gradient. It's going from green to white. If I click on that background color block and I change it to say red, you'll see my gradient has also changed, now fading from green to red. Okay, so you can tweak how the gradient looks like that. Or you can go into it and go to, if I just click on the actual gradient itself, you get to gradient editor. And then you have these sliders and you can move the gradient around like this. You can choose so that the blend is not starting exactly, from one end going to the other end. If I drag the slider in, you'll see that everything to the left of the slider stays that solid green, and the fade only starts from that point on. Okay, and you can customize exactly where that blend occurs by moving this tiny little black block around. And if you want to change the colors at this point, you can too. You can double click in that block and you can choose a new color from your color picker. And you can still at this point also click on the image. So if I know that I want to use colors that are already there, I can for instance click on her hair there, and you'll see how that color is now picked from her hair. And I can go OK, and I can click on the red block to change that as well. And let's go for a light color somewhere there. Okay, so it found that off her forehead. And I've created a gradient by choosing colors that are already there. Right, and then when I'm done, I can click OK. And now, because I'm on a blank layer, if I just click and drag, okay, it's going to set a line. It's going to draw a line out, and I'm still holding my my mouse button down. And your gradient will follow the line. So when I let go, you'll see there's my gradient that's popped in there. Okay, if you hit undo and draw the line going from bottom to the top, you'll see my gradient sits that way. Now if I do it from left to right, my gradient goes that way. Okay, so it follows the angle of your line, almost perpendicular. Right, and you don't have to put it inside a completely blank layer. You can do it inside a selection as well. So if you want to just paint a certain part, and you don't want the paintbrush to go outside of a certain area, like let's say I just want to color in part of her forehead here. Okay, I can go here with the lasso select. I'm going to do this part like this. I'm going to make sure I'm on the image that she's on. Okay, I'm going to go with, let's say, my brush tool. And now if I use it, it's only going to come out inside the selection. Okay, look at that. As soon as I move outside the selection, it doesn't come out. Now it's finally giving me that green color. All right. So I could just constrain it inside that selection. And then if I wanted a soft edge, okay, I could modify that afterwards. I go to selection, feather. Okay. So if you didn't do the selection, if you didn't do the setting before you began the selection, so if I went to lasso select and I left it on 0, and afterwards I decide I still want to feather the selection a little bit, you can just go up to select here, go to modify and go to feather, and then say how many pixels do you want it to feather, like how much blur do you want. So you have to play around with the settings to get a feel for it, but I'm just going to go for 8 and see what that gives me. Alright, and now if I go to layer 2, remember this selection is now feathered. If I put my brush in there, you'll see that the brush is feathered too. Okay, the selection outline kind of sits right in the middle of that feather. But you'll see that as I'm doing it, if I hit Control D now, I've got the soft edge, because that soft edge is created from the feathering in the selection. Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to show that you can work inside selections like that. And the same goes for the gradient tool, or any one of these brush tools, okay? Because there is a selection active, and I'm on layer 2 now, if I do the gradient, it's only going to fall inside that selection, okay? And I can turn it off, and there you can see there's my gradient that I put inside the selection. Okay, so that's an easy way to kind of constrain using that paint bucket tool. And you can also create a fade where instead of fading from the foreground to the background color, you can fade from a color to transparent or to nothing. Okay, so if I wanted to put a fade basically from black to nothing, so I can still see part of this image here, you can do that by adjusting the opacity of one of the colors in the gradient. So you go to your gradient tool over here, we click on the gradient up there, and you'll see that I've got a preview of the gradient here with my color sliders at the bottom. The sliders at the top are the opacity sliders, so you can mix and match these around. So if, for example, I want to go from black to nothing, okay, I'm going to just double click in there. I'm going to choose black as the starting color of the gradient. I can, I don't want it to become muddy, so I'm going to choose black as well as the ending color. Okay, so it's basically no gradient right now. Then I'm going to select this upper little grip over here. I'm going to change the opacity to say, well, to nothing. Okay, so now I've got a nice fade. It's black all the way through, but as it gets towards this side, the opacity bleeds out to nothing. Okay, 100% over here. If I click there, 100% opacity. And you can change these sliders too, so you can adjust where you want the fade. Okay, and then you click OK when you're done with it. Now layer 2 is already this blot on the head, so I'm going to create a new layer over there. So it's basically blank. There's nothing in there yet. So now if I go and lay down this fade, and you'll see that transparency grid is showing in the background there. If I go and lay it down from left to right, you'll see how it filled in black and then it slowly faded to nothing. Okay, and if I did it going vertically, same story. And if I only began drawing the line here, everything above it would be black. So I can make that gradient come out quite small and sharp if I draw a tiny line like that. Okay, but if I draw a big line, it's going to be a big smooth gradient. Let me draw one that even extends past the canvas. Okay, and so that part of the image is transparent. If I turn off all of these other layers underneath, you'll see that I've now got this soft fade happening, which is quite cool. And then I could go and change this to a color maybe. Okay, I've got it selected. Let's go to maybe adjustments, hue, saturation. Let's change the lightness up, gray, and then I'm just going to colorize. Maybe that will help me. Saturation. There we go. So now I've got a cool orange color going on there. I'm going to click OK, and then I can play with blending modes, and I can do something cool here. Maybe darken. All right, interesting. Multiply. Okay, so have a look at on off overlay. Okay, so you can see that has made it like kind of quite vivid and orangey up there. And then it disappears towards the bottom. Like her bottom lip there is not really affected because you understand that part of the image is almost completely transparent on that layer. Okay, so it's allowing me to see what's underneath it. So yeah, you can mix and match like that. But that's the gradient tool, and that's super useful. Okay, so just remember you can do color to color blends, or you can do color to transparency blends. Okay, and you can tweak all the settings about how far they sit and how blurry or how out of focus that gradient is by the length of the line that you draw before you let go of the mouse button. Okay, so that was the gradient tool. Then we've got some blur tools over here. So let me turn off this layer and zoom in a little to her face there. I'm just going to go to the zoom tool, click. There we go. There's some sharp detail there in her teeth. So I'm going to show you now. If we go to the blur tool, looks like a teardrop. Okay. And there's a couple other ones under there, sharpen, which is the opposite of blur. So let me try the first one here, blur tool, and you'll see it gives me a little outline of the brush because this is technically a type of brush. Okay, I want to make it a little bit bigger, and my strength is set as 50%. Okay, so if I make this higher, it's going to blur more. And as I click and drag over this area here, oh, excuse me, I'm on the wrong layer. Let me select it there, layer 1. Okay. Can you see how it's blurring? Okay, and if I increase the strength now, and I just keep clicking and dragging and painting over it like this, okay, you'll see that I'm blurring these parts of the image. It is altering the pixels at this point. So you would never want to blur an image and then decide later you're going to sharpen it because you're not dealing with great information there. It's not going to sharpen back to the way it was before. So if you're going to use a tool like this, maybe duplicate the layer and keep a copy of it in the background like this. Okay, and then go ahead and do whatever you need to do, and if you don't like it at the end, you can delete it and you've still got the original layer underneath it. Okay, or if you downloaded the picture, it's still saved in your hard drive. So you can still undo that change. But whenever you use brush tools, you're going to have to rasterize any smart objects because at this point you'll be actually changing the pixel information, the color or position or something like that. So if it is a smart object at this point, it'll say, hey, you can't blur it or you can't use the eraser because you need to rasterize it first. So that's the blur tool. I'm going to use the sharpen tool on the other side of her mouth now, and it's the opposite of blur. It also has a strength setting, and you'll see that it starts to go a little bit nuts here if you use it too much. But if I use it over some of these details, like some of these freckles, it should maybe, there you go. It's a very subtle effect, but it just makes things a little bit crisper. Okay, but if you use it too much, it starts to blow the colors out like this, and you get this weird effect, like it starts to go all rainbow. Okay, so it's trying to crisp that up, but now I'm just going over a blurred area, so it's not great. But if you look there, you can see what the effect of that is. All right. So then we've got dodge and burn. So this is great for lightening or darkening parts of an image. Okay, and it's anytime you right-click with these brush tools, you can adjust the size or hardness. Okay. So you'll see as I go over her cheek now, it's becoming lighter. Okay, and so I can use this and I can just boost the highlights here. I can go over her eyes and color that in and this part here. Okay, and I'm working in the mid-tone range at the moment. If I wanted to perhaps work on her hair there, it's not working so great. Also, I've got a hard edge on this. Okay, I should take that down so that it's much softer and more subtle. There we go. And then let me change my mid-range to, my range to shadows maybe. And then go there. Okay, generally you can just leave it on mid-tones. And you can change how strong the effect is by changing the exposure. Like 6%, I have to click a lot to make a change. Okay. But you can add little highlights to things like this as well, and you can make surfaces seem shiny if you use this tool. And then if you click and hold on it, you get to burn, which is exactly this. It's the opposite of dodge. Okay, you just go here. You'll see that I can now darken these layers. Okay, but if you use these tools too much, it takes the color out of the image and you end up kind of desaturating a little bit and it starts to turn black and white. Okay, but these are some useful tools. If I go and change the hardness to 0, maybe make it a bit bigger, okay, I can go back into her eyes and I can make them darker again, and so you can do things like that. Shame, she's looking pretty beat up now. Pen tool, okay. And then the last thing I want to show you for today is just cloning tools. Okay, so this is one way to take a part of the image and duplicate it to another part. Okay, so let us find a new image of, let's say, fence posts. Okay, fence posts, maybe on a nice landscape somewhere. No, there we go. That one seems cool. Okay, sure, that's a big image. Copy image. Okay, I'm just going to paste it in here, and I'm going to get rid of these other layers. Turn them off. Okay, I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in there a little bit, and now we're going to deal with this little thing over here. It's about halfway down the toolbar. It's called Clone Tool. Yeah, it's the only one like it. Spot heating, no, we won't do that yet. Okay, it's called Clone Stamp. It's just underneath your paintbrush. Okay, and what it does is it takes a sample from a particular part on this layer and it will draw it somewhere else. So if I wanted another fence post next to this one here, okay, I could duplicate this one, and let's say I wanted to put it in there. Okay, I could go over here to my selection tool and I could draw a selection around this thing. Okay, and then if I went Control C, Control V, and I use my move tool, I could move this fence post over there. And I could make a copy, and it's not too bad, but you see if I zoom in there, I've got some hard edges. A better way to do this would be, after doing the selection, just go and feather it a little bit so I get a nice soft edge. Okay, modify feather. Let's make it 12 pixels, okay. And you'll see that it rounded the corners after I did that feather setting. And now if I copy and paste this one, okay, got a nice soft edge there, you see. And now I can paste it over there, and it blends pretty well. At a glance, you would never know that that wasn't there already. Except that, okay, they look identical. I should actually probably put it down there. Oopsie. Maybe transform it a little bit, okay, scale it. And maybe stick it in somewhere there, okay? Now maybe you wouldn't notice it so much. Okay, so that is one way to do it. Another way to do it, and that was the reason I had that chick's face as well, because you can use it in freckles and things like that, or whatever. Okay, like you're doing a magazine cover. So let me delete layer 5 there, the copy of that fence post. Okay, so if you go to the Clone Stamp tool, you can select an appropriate size. So I'm just going to do something that's about medium size over there. And then you need to hold in the Alt key, and it's going to change into your crosshairs. And now you're going to click on the part of the image that you want to copy. So I already know ahead of time that I want to duplicate this post right next to it. All right, so I'm just going to click on the this top corner of the post there. It doesn't really matter where you start, okay? But you'll see now that as I move my mouse after holding an Alt and clicking, I now have a little sample of that image following my mouse cursor wherever it goes. And if I start to click and basically use it like a brush, you'll see that, and I'm holding my finger down now, and I'm just moving over the fence post, and you'll see that it's almost offset. There's the little crosshair that is like about, if you look at the projector, like 30 centimeters to the left of where my cursor is actually painting. Okay, and that is showing you where it is sampling the image from. So it's basically taking the image on the right, which was the fence post, and it is moving it a little bit, 30 centimeters, or it's copying it like a brush over to this side. And you'll see that as I get down there, it's just, and so I can kind of basically make a clone of this thing. That's why it's called clone stamp. I can make a clone of this thing and then paint in a fence post next to it. But my brush settings weren't so great there. You see I had quite a hard edge, so the clouds don't blend together so well there. If I just hit undo and I right click, I can change my hardness down to 0, increase the size of it. And I'm going to hit Alt again just to select a new point. Like let's say this fence post over there. Okay. And now I let go Alt. And now I see the outline. And as I move my mouse there, I can see that it's basically giving me a copy of that area. I'm going to just start drawing over here, and you'll see my little cursor moving down there. There we go. And I'll stop there. And now that blended in pretty well, and now I basically have created a copy of this one, this stump over there. It almost looks like there's an extra one there. So if you have an elevation or something and you want to show somebody like the walk up the driveway or some other detail on the presentation like that, or you want to put in a bunch of trees, you could use, maybe you have an image of trees already, you could use this clone function to add in some extra trees, okay, and to copy objects around. And in the original example, if you were working on a face like this, and let's say you wanted to, well, if you want to give it another eye, you could just go down to that layer, choose your clone stamp tool, hold in Alt and click on an eyeball, and then I can start painting somewhere else over there like that. And you can see that it is basically duplicating that area wherever I move my brush. And if I want to give her some teeth up there as well, I can hit Alt and click over there and move my cursor up, and I can put in some teeth over there. Okay, that's kind of weird, but maybe we could just do a subtle adjustment, like move your mouth up just a little bit. Okay, starting to look a little bit special. And then let's move that eye down on it like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. that's not a practical example, but you get the idea. Okay, so you can use clone stamp like that as well. And if you want some more freckles, okay, you could go over there as well. I could choose that freckle over there, and you'll see that it is now taking a sample of that image, and now I can paste that somewhere else. And so you can basically color in and duplicate that area. And I can give her a couple more freckles here. Okay, like that. Okay, or you can use this to fill in grass or texture or anything on some kind of presentation you're doing. Okay, yay. So that's the clone stamp tool. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, I'm not going to go through any more tools today. We'll do text and stuff next week. I think for the next 10 minutes, we can finish half an hour earlier today. But for the next 10 minutes, I think go and find yourself an image, any image, and go and play with some of the brush tools you just went through now. Okay, go and put a gradient over the image. Go and use the clone stamp tool. Okay, use it creatively. You can decide how you want to do it. Let's say like tree, lined, tree, I don't know. Let's do architectural drawing. Let's see what I can get here. Let's do architecture elevation sketch. Yeah, maybe that one. Okay, copy. Yeah, you can use a computer. Paste. Okay, like there's a nice little guy there. Like let's say I want that guy but also standing in that window over there. Then I'm just going to go to my clone stamp tool, make sure I'm on the layer here. I'm going to click on his head. And there's a little preview of the dude. You see my brush is a little bit big, so it's picking up the doorway next to him. So I'm going to decrease the size of my brush a little bit. Let's try that again. I'm going to click a little bit right of his head. There we go. And then I'm just going to paint in a little clone of him standing over there. Okay, and that dude down there, I can put him next to him. So I'm going to just sample him, and then I'm going to paste him in over there. Okay, cool. And then let's say I wanted a gradient to fill in this part of the image over there. I can do a quick little selection. Let's do polygonal selection. Select this part over here. Okay, cool. I'm going to create a new layer so that I don't end up putting the gradient on top of these pixels here. I want it on a floating layer so I can turn it on and off and modify it independently of the sketch layer. Okay, so that's why I created a new layer 5 there. Let me get rid of these other ones. 5. Okay, and she can go as well. Cheers. Okay, so layer 5, I've still got the selection going there, and now I'm just going to go to my gradient tool, and let me choose a new gradient here. Let me modify something. Okay, so I want you guys to just play around, choose your own gradient. Blue, and I'm going to make it fade to nothing. Okay, fade to black. Metallic, there we go. Okay, yay. But I want to still see the sketch lines coming through, so I'm going to change the blending mode of this maybe to multiply. There we go, now I can see the sketch better. Okay, so I'm just mixing and matching tools here, and then I'm going to add some color into this roof. I'm going to do it manually with my brush tool here. I'm going to create a new layer as well. I'm going to put that one onto multiply too, and I'm just going to go in there. Oh, no, I don't want dark black. I want a different color. This color. Okay. Okay, and if I go outside the lines, it's fine. I'm just going to go over here a little bit, paint in this color. Okay, and then if I went a bit past it over there, it's fine. I'll just cut that away. Okay, I'm going to make a quick selection. A polygon lasso like this. Okay, get rid of that. I'm just going to hit delete now. Okay. And I haven't touched any of the layers underneath. Okay, if I go to my move tool here, I've got auto select on, I can move this away, and it's independent of the sketch. Okay, and I can move it wherever I want. And the same with this one here. Oopsie. Okay, because they're on separate layers. And then I could go and find a brick texture and I could put that on there. And then if I decided I didn't want this guy in the doorway, I could maybe just erase him out. I could choose my eraser tool, make it a little bit smaller, make sure I'm on that layer 5, and then just go in there and start erasing him. Ah, see, it's not completely erased because my opacity is not at full strength. We got to 100% there. There we go. Okay, bye, he's gone. And if I want to get rid of this window, I can either erase the window because I have white on my background layer, or I could just paint in white. Okay, so I could take my paintbrush tool, and then if I want to quickly select the white color, I just hold Alt, and I choose it, and you see it popped into my foreground there, and then I can just go ahead and just blot this window out with my paintbrush tool. Okay. So even if you drew it a little bit wrong in your sketch, or when it comes to your layout, or you go in a different design direction, you can make a little adjustment to the image like that. Okay. And then you could take this whole thing and use it in a presentation somewhere. All right. Well, that's my example. You guys can do whatever you like. All right. So bye to our video watchers.